I would love to piggyback off of that. I was gonna say definitely outside of your family and friends, preferably. To be honest, even and that's even coming from me, knowing that my whole family is in business. No, I always pursue mentors and spaces and community outside of that because to your point, you can get a more honest take, but then also you can get it from people that don't love and adore you, right? So they're gonna love everything you do anyway. Like it doesn't matter what I do. I know that my family's gonna register, show up for it, buy it, all the things. But I want to hear an unbiased opinion from somebody that I know that's like they care enough about me to give their honest opinion because they want me to be great. And so to add on to that, for the Gen Z, as students, when you said something as students, it triggered something in my head, which is that's the best time for you to be launching something or starting something and asking for help because people love to help students. We will do it willingly because you're a student and you are naturally somebody we want to like mentor and help and coach. And so that's the optimal time for you to be asking. In my book, I talk about silent, I call them secret agents, and those are people that are in business or getting in business and don't tell anybody. And so I think that's a big barrier for a lot of new and aspiring business owners is they want to launch it in secret and coming soon, they're gonna coming soon us to death. Then no one knows about it. Like, because guess what? If I don't see it on my Instagram feed, I just don't see it. If you didn't tell me about it, if you haven't reached out, if you haven't done clear marketing, if you haven't, it's a lot of steps in place that I'm gonna miss it, right? And when you said about social media, an example of where social media does not work for a business as a marketing tool is I have a really good friend who runs a special needs disability business service-based business where she does like one-on-one with I think it's like K-12 students. So she may go to school with them or she may actually tutor them at home, several different services that she provides. She's like she's never going to reach her target audience on Instagram. It's just not where they are. But what she did find is going to the schools, talking to the schools, and they already have the families and the parents that need her services. Going to community centers, talking to practitioners who are servicing these students and families. And so like I remember when I first talked to her, when she reached out to me to help her with just like business consulting, she was just like, people kept on telling her, oh, you need to do more social media. And she's like, they're not on social media. That's not what they're doing. They're taking care of their children. So they're not on social media. And so I think, it's so important to just kind of find the right people that can help guide you, mentor you, coach you, and really give you a true perspective of like where you can really thrive. And so like Justin mentioned, definitely I have had mentors in various sectors, from travel to business, apparel, everything, every lane in which I plan to enter or create. I have a mentor or coach to help me. And as far as resources, for tangible resources, along with what you already shared, Jolisa, I think also there are coaches and strategists and people out here, obviously clearly vet them, that can help you with the business that you're doing. Look, ask for receipts. Just don't invest in yourself with someone else that you're not clear about. But definitely find the people. And one of my mantras or life mantras is networking through service leads to generational wealth. And that has been my life. It's proven is that I have served. I've asked how can I help you? And I knew that by helping them, I was going to be helped, and I would learn just from soaking up information and knowledge. And so being a sponge, I do know that as a recruiting manager for this new generation of professionals, they do have a challenge in which they want everything immediately and now, and feel like everybody should give it to them without doing anything. And so I would just encourage them to find a way. How can you serve and still learn and absorb and add value before you go and ask somebody to do something for you?
So I'm going to ask Justin to kind of tell a little bit about his MBA concentration, which is in entrepreneurship. But I also want to, after Justin speaks, I want to talk about how we can actually get more students, and I'm talking about African American students, to be aware of entrepreneurship. And Chelsea, since you're already kind of like focused on that with HBCU VC, if you can kind of talk about that aspect. And then we'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Paula. I'm going to make this quick. Y'all, I adored my MBA in entrepreneurship. I when I started the program, I was a working actor. There was so much I didn't know about the industry. And though I had an agent, manager, and attorney, I said, these are transferable skills that I need to learn because as entrepreneurs, we come from all these different backgrounds. We heard Jada, from resume writing to radio to all these different things. So entrepreneurship really allows us to combine all of our gifts and talents and skills and personalities. So starting the MBA program, it was foundational. So all the things from marketing, accounting, finance, all the foundational things in business that honestly, in my opinion, we should have learned in high school, as well as these should have been mandatory general ed classes. But I'm not going to go on that tangent. So once that foundation was set, then it built upon entrepreneurship. And it was a wild ride. So it was almost like, we had so many different concepts of entrepreneurship. And I did like that because then I got to choose which one worked best for me. Or I'm going to grab from Jada's playbook, Paula's playbook, Jarlisia's playbook, and I'm just going to hodgepodge and then add in my own sprinkles. And so that's what the MBA in entrepreneurship taught me and said, okay, see what's out there and then grab what works for you. Don't follow anyone else's blueprint because it's different. The personality is different. I can't operate in Los Angeles the same way I would operate in Memphis. And I can't operate in Memphis the same way I would operate in New York. So it's like entrepreneurship really is the blueprint, but your own personal blueprint. I can't be Beyonce. I would love to be Beyonce, but I can't be Beyonce, y'all. I have to figure out what aspects of Beyonce's entrepreneurship work best for me. And so that's what the entrepreneurship MBA taught me. Build up the foundation of the general things that we need. Please no money, please no marketing. Of course, you don't have to be a guru in those areas. But then when you look at entrepreneurship as a whole, what works for you, your brand, your business, your clientele, and your goals? And thank you for that question, Paula.
And I think before you answer your question, Chelsea, is that one thing that you have to have as an entrepreneur, you have to have a level of critical thinking. So if you have an idea and you only have one way that you want to approach it, you got to have some way to go about it in a different perspective because there is no cookie cutter process to entrepreneurship. And so the research and reading and getting more familiar about some of the best practices and then how, like you said, Justin, how you can kind of make that your own, I think is like one of the major things that we need to make sure that students understand. And that does not necessarily mean getting a business degree in order to learn that. And I don't even think necessarily individuals who have not practiced entrepreneurship can really share that experience. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted people that are actually in the trenches to do this, to be a panelist, because just because someone has an MBA, that doesn't mean that they can actually teach you how to be an entrepreneur. So Chelsea, why don't you go ahead and answer your question about how we can get more students at HBCUs more engaged in entrepreneurship?
In a perfect world, I feel like, the answer to that is just kind of like making sure that it's implemented in the classrooms. But I feel like it's bigger than that. I feel like entrepreneurship, like Justin was saying, there's things that you're going to learn along the way. As an entrepreneur, things that you're not going to get in the classroom. And what an entrepreneur looks like is different. Our CEO, she is the child of Jamaican immigrants, born in Philly. She didn't realize what she was witnessing her grandmother and her aunts and uncles do was entrepreneurship. She just knew that somebody was in the kitchen, whipping up West Indian dishes. Somebody else was, doing night jobs, cleaning office buildings throughout the Philadelphia, area. I feel like, for one, entrepreneurship is hard. Like, we get that. Like, it's not a linear path, oftentimes. But it's also not this thing that is just like unattainable. I feel like we make it relatable, if we kind of break down some of the barriers, have people understand that a lot of the people that you're seeing, the journeys that they are on, like, they were once in these seats at HBCUs, like they were once HBCU students. I think that, and you probably hear my son in the background. So, I think the main thing that we need to do is just make it more visible, in all aspects, not just the glitz and glamour of what happens when you get that major seed funding. When you go through your early stage funding as a founder. I think for HBCU students in particular, having that support system, not just faculty and staff, but in addition, just to like having small businesses come on campus and work with students, and having their presence known. And I think, honestly, I don't want to go too deep into it, but like, I feel like a lot of universities could do a better job with working with local communities, like leaders and entrepreneurs in the area. I remember Winston-Salem, they have like I think, an entrepreneurship alliance or something like that, where sometimes they would come on campus and talk with, a lot of times it was just like business students, but talking across the entire campus. And as you said, like, an entrepreneur does not have to come from the business school. This can be somebody who's coming from with a political science degree. This could be somebody coming from like a mass comm degree. In helping people understand that there is no one size fits all. A lot of VC and VC adjacent. That's what we tell people. Like, we're not just going to celebrate and big you up if you're, an investment analyst at this big firm. We want to know what you're doing. If you work are you at a local university? Did you decide to go back and get another degree? Did you decide to pick up a trade? We want to follow your journey, because entrepreneurship is dynamic, in a sense. And so I think just increasing the exposure of entrepreneurship and just having better networks and ecosystems with the communities around HBCUs, because it's right there. Once you step off campus, a lot of times you're surrounded by people who are entrepreneurs that can, it's that symbiotic relationship. It's that mutual relationship. A lot of times universities deserve to, they need to do a better job of working with those right there in their community. So HBCU VC, we have our fellowship program. And like I said, we're hoping to get across more campuses, but even beyond our work, I think a lot of the work can be done specifically on those campuses with entrepreneurs. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, so do we have any questions for the panelists? You can put it in the chat, or you can come off mute. Okay, so what I'll ask is, I know that the pandemic has caused everybody to want to shift to online. And even though you may have a website, you have to put in the same type of work, whether it's a brick and mortar. So Jada, since you deal with e-commerce marketing, kind of give us a little bit of what are some of the things that you recommend from someone that is transitioning from a brick and mortar to an online environment?
Absolutely. Great question. So, I definitely think you have to be creative, think big. So I'm a big thinker. I always tell people to think big. And so if you have let me see if I can use a business as an example. I'll use my good friend, Christina McCarter. I wrote about her in my book because I'm so thoroughly impressed by her as a business owner, but then also as a friend. She had a food tour business, city tasting tours in Memphis. And then, the pandemic happened and all restaurants were affected. And literally that's where her business was about, visiting restaurants. Her pivot was to give the tours virtually. And so still giving an experience, and she still was delivering the food from the various restaurants, but gave a virtual experience. I've seen museums that were all closed during the pandemic. They all then did a virtual experience. And so I think that some of the things that you have to do if you're going to make that type of transition is, I think, honestly, businesses in general, pandemic aside, whether we have another one or not, I think every business owner needs to be prepared to operate in some capacity remotely. They should start thinking about those plans, to have those contingent plans in place. One of the most discouraging things I saw as this pandemic happened was the fact that our United States government and pretty much every government agency was not prepared to do anything remotely, which blew my mind. Living in DC and working in HR, and I just was able to see, how unprepared pretty much every agency was. Nobody could work from home. Like, I think that blows my mind considering where we are in 22. So I think just making sure you have the infrastructure, even if it's just that you can accept client inquiries online, like at the very basic level. Could someone reach you online? Let's start there. Like, let's just start very basically. Can somebody reach you online? Could you communicate with them online? Are they aware of the services that you provide or the products that you provide if they were to go to your website? Shout out to Kayla that's on here now. She is a doula. And so, if I use her business as an example, she may just be if there's ever a point where she's not able to service people as much as possible, in another situation, another pandemic, I would probably encourage her to at least be able to provide education virtually. So doing one-on-one sessions with parents virtually and doing education on just from start to finish, some of the same things she would do in person. And then obviously doing the in-person parts of her business, just like one-on-one and individually and schedule. But again, scheduling, not the birth, obviously that's not possible, but the beginning part, right? The intake, right? Of getting just to meet the parents and what that process looks like, making sure that you have especially as a service-based business, making sure you have a clear onboarding process so that as you intake customers, whether you see them in person, you still need to have an onboarding process for them, right? And so all of those things are really important. And I think that moving forward, business owners need to be thinking about, how can I service customers virtually and in person? I think the only really, a few businesses you can't do it all online. But again, being able to have a digital presence, everybody can do. Everybody can have a digital presence. Everybody can talk about what they offer, because that's really a big hindrance for people is I don't even know sometimes what you do, who you serve, who your target audience is. Like, I have no idea of what it is, even going to your website. I look through your whole website, click on all the pages, and I'm still confused on what you do. And so I think making sure that is very clear, digital presence is extremely clear. Everybody can do it regardless of the business that you're in.
Okay, so I think those were some good tips. So Jarlicia, since funding is an option at some point, and with businesses having to pivot and do something different, how are banks looking at businesses from that perspective? Because I'm of the mindset is that we cannot go back before COVID. I mean, we have to operate from the pandemic, like what the reality is now. So how are you guys viewing that as it relates to entrepreneurs and getting funding?
Yeah, we're definitely taking into consideration what 2020 and 2021 had on all businesses as far as like the impact when it goes into underwriting, what we are looking for. And this is prior to the pandemic, after the pandemic, really it trends as far as how buoyant your company is, as far as like bouncing back. And so I'll just talk from a pathway perspective, because we're not a traditional bank. When it comes to funding needs, we really want to see, okay, forward looking, how are you thinking about your business and what lessons have you learned from COVID? So in case the next thing, because something is always going to happen, you know, right before COVID happened in Nashville was the big tornado. And I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but it drastically impacted the city. For months at a time, people were without electricity. So what are you doing to mitigate that going forward? And looking at a loan package in its entirety, if you're showing me something like, hey, I want to purchase this technology to prevent this going forward, we'd love to hear that. If you're purchasing technology or creating some type of efficiencies where your business can do more, produce more, we'd love to see that. So just taking this into consideration, a lot of banks, traditional banks, are hesitant right now when it comes to funding. But speaking from a pathway perspective, we're more so understanding about an entrepreneurial journey and how the past 2 years have impacted a business. If you're still here, first of all, we're applauding you. Like, that is amazing. Despite the PPP and the EIDL and all of these grants, still businesses were dramatically impacted both ways, negatively and positively, because a lot of people started their business in the pandemic, and their businesses are still thriving. And so that's what I would say from a banking perspective. Just be prepared to explain how COVID, this is what I tell everybody, especially with their business plan. How did COVID impact your business? How did you mitigate that? What are the lessons learned? And what are you putting in place going forward for the next, whatever event happened, you'll be able to sustain within the business. And always, I tell people all the time, as you're growing your business, have at least a month or two worth of expenses saved up in your savings account. So if something does happen, you can float for a little while you're looking for funding, because the banking process for us, we can give you a decision within 30 days, but a lot happens in 30 days. Vendors have to be paid, employees have to be paid. And I tell all my entrepreneurs, you have to eat too. So keep that in mind. You need to eat as well.
Okay. No questions. So what we'll do is we'll end the conversation asking you guys to give me some responses to how do you measure success? So we know that you're in business to make money, but sometimes success doesn't always come in the form of a transaction, monetary transaction. So everybody answer that question. How do you measure success?
I'll be short and sweet about it. I like, when I do any of my coaching sessions, and personally for me, to give yourself a few goals that you think you can realistically achieve. And once you achieve those goals, and what I find most of the time, people surpass those goals. Once you write it down and put it on paper and you know what you're working towards, it gives you daily goals, it gives you monthly goals, it influences everything you do, and remind yourself of those goals. And I'd say if you accomplish those, that's great. It gives you another set of goals to achieve for, but always have something in mind that you're achieving to accomplish.
Mine is something similar. Since I work with my target audience is new and aspiring business owners that are basically having problems executing. Once they execute, for me, I'm happy that they did it, because a lot of times people have great ideas and don't know what to do with them, and they don't do anything. And so for me, once you actually launch your business, that I help, in any capacity, I'm excited for you. Yeah, I will.
Well, I'm going to go on the less technical part. I'm going to say personal and professional peace, because we can get so caught up in the business and how I know that I'm not being successful, even in short-term goals or long-term goals. If I can't sleep at night, if it disturbs my peace, there's something that I'm not doing, that I have to pivot or go back. Because as we stated, y'all, we've been doing this for years. We know how to pivot. We know certain things, and not to be confused with being uncomfortable, because growth is uncomfortable. It's like, I got to get this loan from Jarlicia because I got to get this together. That's uncomfortable. I'm talking about peace, where something ain't right. Something isn't right. So personal and professional peace as it relates to the overarching theme of your business.
For me, a lot of times I'm talking with students, I'm following up with students. We're preparing for graduate season, and I just like, we have a Slack channel for HBCU VC. And so I like hearing back from, to me, I'm somebody, my work is in communications. And so to be able to hear back and, students are saying like, oh, I'm, finishing up my degree, I'm about to go get my PhD, or, oh, I landed this position, I start in June. Hearing that, like, it's not even just the metrics of it. Like, I know quantitative data is important, especially working with a nonprofit, you trying to get funding, but I'm somebody who thrives off the qualitative, those like one-off conversations, like, hey, do you mind if we link up for a Zoom call? The fact that people want to like extend themselves and, see me as being somebody that they can have a conversation with about what's the next step professionally, or like, how should I approach this, or do you mind looking this over? To me, that feels, I always feel good about that. I don't even know if it's necessarily success, but it's joy, it's happiness. I feel like I'm doing well in my role. And then kind of like Justin said, I have a tendency to overwork myself. That it, Black women, like Black women, somebody said we have an issue not with doing, but with not doing, like sitting still, resting. And so I feel like if I can, after all is said and done, if I feel like I'm at peace and I can settle in and not do something and just kind of level out and be present in the moment, then I feel successful.
Well, all of these were some really great responses, and I really thank you guys for taking time out of your schedule to share today. And NPR, so you guys are considered to be opinion leaders. So there is a big gap between baby boomers and Generation Z. They're not listening to them. So you guys are going to be the bridge builders so that Generation Z can listen to somebody that is not on their same level, but somebody that they can respect and look up to and take advice from. So thank you guys so much.